Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are continuing with the reading of Allama Iqbal's Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, and in the last session we looked at the fundamental difference between the Cartesian project and the Ghazalian project, and now we go back to the contrast between Ghazali and Kant, which Iqbal is making, and what connects Kant to Descartes, among other things, is the notion of subjectivity, which Descartes fundamentally invented with Luther and some other people, I guess, and that the allegiance or the adoption of the fundamental Cartesian conception of subjectivity, even though Kant transforms that concept crucially, but he is faithful to the core Cartesian insight of the starting with the subjectivity, and that's what connects Kant's work to Descartes' works. That's not the only thing, but that's one of the crucial things. And that also differentiates Ghazali's work from Descartes and also that of Kant. So we need to look at closely at the concept of subjectivity. Descartes' hyperbolic doubt, among other things, what it does, by hyperbolic doubt we mean radicalization of the ancient skeptic tradition. One outcome, or one central outcome of this radicalization of doubt, is that it gives Descartes a privileged starting point in the subject, because the subject has become an anchor, an indubitable starting point, which cannot be shaken even by hyperbolic doubt, because, as Descartes argues in his Meditations, subject. So you start with saying that I'll doubt whatever I can possibly doubt, like psychologically speaking. That's what his radical doubt is. So he's able to doubt like the external world. He's able to doubt his own body. So what he's saying is, I can conceive that there's no world, and this world which I'm seeing is just a hallucination, or some mad scientist or some demon is just stimulating nerves in my brain or my subject in a way that it seems that the world exists, even though it doesn't exist. Like, for example, it does in other experiences I have, that of dream, for example, and I can think of myself without body. So it means I am not my body. So this is not essential, because I can conceive a world without the external world. I can conceive myself without a body. But what I cannot deny is that there is this someone, I am this someone who is having these experiences. So even if I can deny that I see light, I can doubt that I see light. But I cannot doubt that I seem to see light. So I am able to deny that I hear voices. But I cannot deny that I seem to hear voices. Even I can deny that I am thinking, but I can't deny that I seem to be thinking. So even though I can deny objectivity, I can't deny the subjectivity. I can't conceive of me having these experiences, even if they are hallucination, without me having those experiences. So this seeming, I can deny objectivity, but I can't deny this seeming, this phenomenology, which means that what I cannot deny is subjectivity and subjective truth. And when he say, I think, therefore I am, by think he means any subjective experience. I see, I hear, I feel, all these things. So what he salvages from his radical doubt is the subjective truth as this special anchor which cannot be doubted. It means that from there we can rebuild the whole edifice. So all modern epistemology will start with subjective truth, whether it is in Locke or Hume or Kant in their own ways. And that's what Cartesianism is in this sense. That this subjective truth, this subject is here to stay. This is the heart of modernist and even postmodernist epistemology. And that's why postmodernism is so obsessed with subjectivity, because subjectivity was the foundation of this modern philosophy. And another important point in this procedure is that ancient skeptics wanted to arrive at a criterion of truth before anything else, because unless we have a criterion of truth, we cannot arrive at the truth, because we won't be able to say what is true and what is false without a criterion. But what Descartes does is, and with Descartes the whole Cartesian tradition including Kant, is to avoid the question of the criterion of truth. And that's what part of philosophical skepticism, which we talked about in a couple of sessions ago. Descartes doesn't worry about criterion. So his ultimate truth, so he is able to arrive at the ultimate truth, which is this subjectivity, this phenomenological experience of this subjectivity, which cannot be doubted, without arriving at the, or without establishing criterion of truth at all. Once he establishes the existence of this I thing, then he goes on and establishes the criterion of truth. Okay. Now, Kant is, without, despite all his critique of Cartesianism, Kant is committed to this subjectivity. He will investigate that subjectivity from a different angle and bring forth aspects of subjectivity, that subjectivity, transcendental subjectivity, which Descartes didn't. And he will criticize Descartes and critique Descartes, but we will never abandon I think, which is the supreme principle, as Kant says in Critique of Pure Reason as well. So this subjectivity, that the ultimate, the truth before truth, the truth before we can even talk about truth, is human subjectivity, and from there we establish everything. This is Cartesian vantage point as well as Kant. Ghazali has nothing to do with it. Neither he is trying to arrive, trying to refute skepticism in the way forever, in the way in which Descartes is trying to do. Neither he believes that subjectivity is an absolute criterion. In fact, he has no conception of this interiorized subjectivity, which is devoid of everything, devoid of the world, devoid of body, etc. In fact, the whole medieval and ancient tradition doesn't have any articulate conception of any such subjectivity, and as I've been saying. So that's one of the crucial difference between Ghazali and Kant and Descartes. And when we read Iqbal's comparison between Ghazali and Kant, we should remember this crucial point. So let's read the text again. Ghazali's philosophical skepticism. That's the fourth line. Ghazali's philosophical skepticism, which, however, went a little too far. Now, as we saw, Ghazali is no philosophical skeptic, and we don't know what it means to go too far, but it will become clear as virtually did the same kind of work in the world of Islam in breaking the back of proud but shallow rationalism, which moved in the same direction as pre-Kantian rationalism in Germany. So there are two things at least in this contrast which, as far as we can see, not grounded in historical facts. Let's see. So what's the first? Let me see the text. Okay, so Ghazali, which, however, went a little to virtually did the same kind of work in the world of Islam. So the same is refers to Ghazali's philosophical skepticism. So if Ghazali is not a philosophical skeptic, then this similarity vanishes. But let's see. Which, however, went a little virtually did the same kind of work in the world of breaking the back of the proud. Breaking the back, that's the work. Breaking the proud rationalism. Now let's first focus on Kant. And we have done this sessions on Kant and his relationship with rationalism and empiricism in detail. So I won't I won't rehearse that, but I'll just refer you back to our previous sessions. But I'll just repeat that this is fundamental misunderstanding of Kant's project and his relationship with rationalism. And by rationalism, obviously, we mean Leibnizian rationalism, in which Kant grew and Kant matured as a philosopher. Basically, Leibnizian rationalism, which was dominant in German universities. And as we saw, Kant reassess rationalism and reshape rationalism, but he didn't rejected rationalism, or he didn't want to. That wasn't his project. In fact, in his own words, critique of pure reason, in Kant's own words, his critique of pure reason should be seen as an apology for Leibniz. So what Kant does is, in the face of Humean critique of rationalism, and not just of rationalism but empiricism as well, Lockean empiricism, and Lockean empiricism is also a form of rationalism. So in the face of Humean critique, what Kant does is to reassess Leibnizian rationalism and reformulate it so that it is able to stand to the critique, the Humean critique. So it is apology for rationalism. It is not breaking the bone of the proud rationalism. And if we are talking about medieval rationalism or early modern rationalism, Descartes had already broken its bone, but not with something which was against rationalism, but a new form of rationalism and new form of empiricism. So Iqbal's contrast falls in the first place when we sees Kant as breaking the bone of proud rationalism. In fact, Kant did no such thing. In fact, he reformulates rationalism so that it is immune to the human critique, and Hume is no irrationalist. He is also a Cartesian empiricist, and generally speaking, both empiricism and rationalism fall under the broad sense of rationalism, as we have seen before. So this first point is not correct. Now go back to the text again. Okay, so Ghazali's philosophical sketch, which however went little to virtually did the same kind of work in the world of Islam, in breaking the back of that proud but shallow rationalism which moved in the same direction as pre-Kantian rationalism in Germany. Okay, now as far as we have seen, Kant's and Iqbal's understanding of pre-Kantian rationalism is not very sound as far as we can see in these passages, and he seems to misunderstands Kantian project and its nature. So his contrast with Ghazali is void and null to start with. But let's see his assertion about Imam Ghazali as well. Now, what was Imam Ghazali's project, if there was any one project? Now, proud rationalism, which proud rationalism? If proud rationalism, by proud rationalism, they mean rationalism of Mu'tazila, or it can be proud rationalism of philosophers, so-called Muslim philosophers who were the followers of Aristotle and Plato, like Farabi and Ibn Sina. So as far as Imam Ghazali's project is concerned, he obviously belonged to Asharis, generally speaking, although he criticizes Asharis at various points. But he, as a school, he is an Imam of Ashari Ilm al-Kalam. And in the Ilm al-Kalam tradition, Asharis, as we know, had some differences with Mu'tazila. And Imam Ghazali continues that, but Imam Ghazali wasn't the founder of... Imam Ghazali wasn't the person who broke Mu'tazilites. That was Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and his followers, especially the founder of Ashari school, Imam Abul Hasan Ali Ashari, and after him, many Imams of Ashari schools, including Imam Ghazali's own teacher, Imam al-Haramain. So, although Imam Ghazali continues that tradition, is wrong to say that he broke the bone of Mu'tazilites, or whether Mu'tazilites' rationalism had any comparison with pre-Kantian German rationalism. Mu'tazilas were, Muslim scholars, most of them, generally speaking, Orthodox. They had some unorthodox opinion as far as Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned, and some unorthodox opinion regarding the status of and the concept of rationality and reason. But you can't call them proud rationalists, tout court, because they were Muslim scholars and by and large Orthodox Muslim scholars. And one of the schools of Ilm al-Kalam, even though it's not a school within Ahl-Sunnah, but it doesn't mean that if you are outside Ahl-Sunnah you are not Orthodox. And anyway, after Mu'tazila's defeat, Ash'ariism reappropriated a lot of Mu'tazilite doctrines, or their ethos anyway. Later Ash'aris like Imam Razi and Sanusi and all those people. So that can't be Imam Ghazali's work. Yes, Imam Ghazali's work is at least breaking the bone of so-called Muslim philosophers. And what he did was developed a critique of Greek reason, so rationalism in that way, and re-evaluate what is reason and whether reason is self-sufficient. So his basic critique is on the conception of reason as self-sufficient, which is in a sense a continuation of older Ash'ari critique, which we find in their discourse on at-tahsin wa at-taqbih al-aqli and all other discourses. But beyond that, what Imam Ghazali did was to basically reject Aristotelian metaphysics, his conception of God, and basically he deconstructed Greek physics, metaphysics, to show that it is based on metaphysical doctrines which are against the fundamental Islamic doctrines. That's what he did in Tahafut, Philosophy and other books. And that in a sense was his revolutionary contribution. But Kant doesn't do any such thing. In fact, his conception of God is very close to Aristotle. And he is I mean, mutatis mutandis, he continues Aristotelian project in his own way. And Imam Ghazali's critique of Greek philosophy and Greek reason was important because it fundamentally demarcates the path of Islam from Christianity and Judaism, because Christianity and Judaism both grew or developed in an environment which was very anti-Abrahamic environment, Greek environment, Roman environment, and they were basically transformed by that Roman religion, Roman and Greek religion and philosophy, and there was a huge influence, especially on Christianity, but also on Judaism, which transformed Christianity and Judaism from a Orthodox Abrahamic religion to a combination of Abrahamic and pagan and Greek philosophical doctrines, and especially the doctrines of especially the conception of God was in the case of Christianity heavily influenced by Greek philosophical conceptions of God, and pantheism and notions of pantheism in different way affected the Christian conception of God, and it turned from a monotheistic religion into a Trinitarian religion. And there were various factors in that, but one of the important factor was that Christianity never rejected Greek metaphysical doctrines in a way in which Imam Ghazali did in the Islamic tradition. So in a sense we can say that the difference between generally speaking, the difference between the fact that Islam keeps, even to this day, its basic fundamental Abrahamic nature, while Judaism and Christianity don't. This fundamental difference, I think, crucially consists in that while Islam, through people like Ghazali, rejected Greek metaphysics, Christianity and Judaism didn't reject it fully. I'm not saying they didn't reject it at all, but they didn't reject it fully, and they compromised with Greek philosophical doctrines in a way in which it became impossible after Ghazali's critique. So in this sense, Iqbal is totally oblivious to this great Ghazalian work, and he sees Ghazali as just another Cartesian philosopher doing similar sort of thing as Kant and Descartes, which is not true at all, as we have seen. Okay, let's go back to the text and finish it today. So, Ghazali's philosophical skepticism, which however went a little too far, virtually did the same kind of work in the world of Islam in breaking the back of that proud but shallow rationalism which moved in the same direction as pre-Kantian rationalism in Germany. So, this is not true in many ways, and we looked at some of those. Next time we'll start from there is however. Okay, thank you.